Good morning, Gamecock fans. TGIF to all of you out there. It is the Friday, February 7th, the year of our Lord 2025. This is Coffee. Appreciate all of you folks listening today as we wrap up the work week. Episode 20 of Coffee. We've done this for a month straight now, guys and gals, and I appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me that someone would care enough about what I have to say to tune in, and there's a lot of you. So, hats off to you guys and gals. So, our audience is 95% male. So I say guys, you guys. Plus, I think that's the Midwestern like influence. You guys, hey, you guys want a beef sandwich, that kind of thing. So I say you guys, but I try to you and gals because we do have some hardcore Gamecocks that listen to this and the show and everything else. Want to apologize about no show yesterday. I'm fine. I got a text from a couple of our loyal listeners that are friends of mine and asking how I was. It was fine. It was a situation with the in-laws, and so it couldn't be avoided. Just kind of came up. It was icy here, so there was a fall, that kind of thing. Nothing serious though. We got through it. It just did not allow me to get on the air or over the internet for those 2 hours with Phil, and that's fine. We'll be back today stronger than ever. Did want to remind everybody too, opening day for Carolina baseball with the show. We're going to do what we did last year with 4 hour opening day baseball extravaganza. I'm assuming with all four of us, Phil, myself, Mad Dog, and maybe Mike, all three of us at least, and a parade of guests. Last year we had Ray Tanner, Monty Lee, the head coach at the time, Mark Kingston, all the former players that you see come in like Grayson Griner, Stuart Lake. I mean, everybody. So if you're a Carolina baseball fan, tune in next week, 10 to 2. You won't regret it. And then there'll be, cut ups of those various interviews on our YouTube channel, which you can hit subscribe to right now for absolutely free. So there's a lot of talk out there as we switch gears back to football about receivers. And before I get into this, I'm going to just say shout out to Sterling Sharpe for being elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I can't say enough good about the experience that I had when I was just getting into football when I was 9, 10, 11 years old. Because I didn't really understand the sport until then. I knew baseball because I played coach's pitch. I was terrible. And I knew basketball, 2 points per basket, but football, the kind of ins and outs, I mean, I was a smart kid, but I never took the time to dig into it. Once I dug into it, it just goes to show you with me, some of you may be like this. If I'm not interested in it, I don't want to learn about it, know about it. I'm completely oblivious to like what it is. But I wasn't really that interested in learning about it. Then I did, and there we go. So 86 season is when I started being diehard. Carolina went 3-6-2 that year, but scared the what out of a lot of highly ranked teams. Really tough schedule that season under Joe Morrison. And then they rebounded for 87, and Sterling was on that team. He was a senior. And that team, folks, until the whole, because things kind of went south the next year in 88, until the Holtz era, that was probably, that in 1984, of course, were considered really the glory years of modern Carolina football. Maybe 1980 when George Rogers won the Heisman, but that team was really good. It started off kind of slow, lost to Georgia in a close one, had Nebraska down in the fourth quarter. Back then, Nebraska was a power. I remember Sterling caught some big plays then from Todd Ellis in that game, and then got on a tear and started just blowing everybody out in a top 10 battle against Clemson, beat them. Then that year, and I went to this game, Miami won the national championship under Jimmy Johnson, but South Carolina played the Hurricanes in the Orange Bowl after the Clemson game. It would have been first week of December, so the week that is normally the SEC championship game. They used to kind of schedule some games here and there. There was a fight. It was a tremendous football game. Jimmy Johnson remarked after they won the national title against Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl that South Carolina game was a lot tougher and felt more like a championship game. Final was 20-16. I remember sitting up there, and weirdly enough, as an aside, Carolina played basketball in the Orange Bowl tournament or whatever earlier that day. They played George Felton's team. I just happened to be in that tournament that year. And Miami basketball used to play at this arena that was connected to a Hyatt Regency or a Hilton one in Miami. We actually stayed in that hotel, and the basketball arena was just kind of part of the hotel, just like in Vegas, where you got an arena attached to a big casino hotel, or how the Omni used to be in Atlanta. But man, it was interesting. It was about a 4,000 seat arena, and all the Gamecocks were in town for the football game, so took over the arena, beat Miami in basketball. Everybody's chanting football next, and then boy, going that football game was something else. That was a great experience that I'll never forget with my dad and some friends of ours. Of course, my dad passed away in 1995, and his friend Stan, he was with, I think, passed in the mid 2000s. So they're no longer with us, but I certainly have great memories of that. Sterling Sharpe was on that team. So I hated what happened to him with the neck injury. He had to give up football. He absolutely made the right decision, protecting his health. It's kind of funny because he was with the Packers and was Brett Favre's go-to guy. And then Robert Brooks from South Carolina was drafted by the Packers, and he took over, and he kind of created the Lambeau leap. So lots of South Carolina connections. I think Keyshawn Nixon and J.J. Enagbare are with the Packers right now. So lots of connections there with the Green Bay Packers, the rivalry team of my Chicago Bears. I guess I'm supposed to hate the Packers, but because I'm a new Bears fan, I don't really hate them because I have all those South Carolina connections, and I was a fan of Favre and all that. So anyway, hats off to Sterling Sharpe being elected to the NFL Hall of Fame. It's really quite an accomplishment. I love watching the guys get inducted every summer for the Hall of Fame game. That's usually the first football exhibition game or whatever. Just really happy for him and for the University of South Carolina, and also for the Green Bay Packers and everybody involved. He deserves it. Some people don't, they're like Sterling, blah, blah, blah. And for a while, Sterling Sharpe did kind of stay away from the program, and he had his reasons. It was kind of how he was treated. But he's not been treated poorly since. And, he kind of got along with Steve Spurrier, and they played golf, and he's still around. And I just am thrilled that he made it in, and that, he certainly was deserving. So anyway, speaking of receivers, we got to talk about the room. There's a lot of chatter, and there's some debate as to whether or not South Carolina should have landed a, quote, wide receiver one in the portal. Now, look, wide receiver ones are nice to have. And but I don't really think that exists. I don't really think that's a thing. It is a thing. There are top receivers, top receiving targets on a team. But I think if you're good, you don't want just one wide receiver to go to, because you take him out of the game. That's the thing. I mean, in 2023, South Carolina clearly had a wide receiver one in Xavier Legette. It would have been very helpful to have Juice Wells. And in that instance, I mean, just taking the bias against, or not the bias, but the rightful disappointment. How about that? In Juice Wells taking off, abandoning the program and going to Ole Miss. You take that out of the equation. Think about Juice at the end of 2022. I think Juice would have been the wide receiver one on the team. Maybe not. Maybe Xavier is, but that just kind of goes to show you that, yes, you have a top receiver. No, it's not important to have somebody just better than everybody else. What you want is to have many that can beat coverage and make plays and give your quarterback some options. Now, I'll be honest, South Carolina, it never happened like that in 2024. Some guys had trouble getting open. We've mentioned several times some guys could not stay healthy. They were in and out of the lineup. It's a testament to the offensive coordinator, Dowell Loggins, and to Mike Fury, the receivers coach, and Lenore Sellers, that they were able to have at times good passing game, and 350, and Josh Simon at tight end, 353 yards in the win over Missouri. Missouri decided they weren't going to let the Gamecocks run, so you threw it, and that's what you want to do. And they had enough of a passing game to win games. I don't necessarily know that the lack of a passing game hurt them this year. In other words, they weren't a team that you just needed to kind of grind it out and keep it, time of possession, things like that. If anything, I could have made an argument for the offense to go a little faster at times this year. So they threw it plenty. Um, but was it the best receiving core top? No, it wasn't. It needs to get better. I mean, there's not, you know, you can't realistically look at it and go, well, the tight end led you in receptions. You had a true freshman that led the receivers in receptions at Mazio Bennett. There was not that go-to guy. There were a couple that, I mean, it seemed like every other game, depending on the game, this guy's the go-to, that guy's the go-to guy. And I think that actually helps Lenore Sellers trust a lot of different receivers. But do you look at South Carolina's receiving core and go, boy, those guys have some studs? How about no? No, they don't. There's just a lot of potential there. So you look at it, and we've talked about the three, Jared Brown. We've talked about Vandrevius Jacobs here, and elsewhere. And we've talked about Mazio Bennett. He was the subject of, I think, the first episode of Coffee, or one of the early ones. And, we know what those guys need to do. Bennett needs to just work on, all those guys need to work on yards after catch. Brown needs to work on drops. Jacobs needs to get in the playbook. Bennett just needs to get stronger and better. I think he kind of hit a freshman wall. We have not talked a lot about Nyck Harbor, and Nyck Harbor he's foregoing track and working on football this spring. I think that's good for him. I think he's a player that, by all accounts, works very, very hard at football. I know that because of the public statements Coach Beamer's made and the private statements that have been made. And he works. He's got that Alshon Jeffrey level work ethic. He's just not as natural at receiver, or hasn't been, as Alshon was. Alshon used to stay after. I mean, here's this big recruit that could have gone anywhere in the country, and Alshon would stay after practice during the Spurrier era. It's back when practices were open, and you'd see him out there running routes and taking advantage of every moment to get better. Nyck has that same work ethic, and I think it's paid off, because I think he was pretty far away from being a guy that like his personified digital self on the video game. Great athlete, though. And I look at it, and it's like, I heard one of our 24/7 sports guys say this year it's time for Nyck Harbor to take the training wheels off, and I agree with that. I think it's time for him to take another step forward, like he did this season and like he did in his first year, because he was not, he got to the point where he could get on the field in 2023. Part of it was a lack of, bodies, because, again, injuries happened at that position again, or just like everywhere else in 2023. But part of it was, he got into a position to do that. I think he caught everything. Just about. Very few drops. He had some drops this year, but he played more this year. That catch against Alabama, I think, really got him going to a level where he can consistently catch 3 or 4 passes a game. And with the kind of the wide receiver by committee this year, the stats, that's to be expected. There's a lot missing, though, with him. I think that, that can be found. I guess that's the opposite of missing. It can be discovered, but he's still 6'5", 230. That's important. I think he plays very physical. He blocks on the perimeter. South Carolina's perimeter blocking was night and day better. PFF graded him low, if I'm not mistaken, in that department. I don't know what the hell they're watching in that instance. Sometimes I agree with them, sometimes I don't, because he got out there and blocked and played physical. I don't remember too many times where you sat there and said, "Oh, the perimeter blocking's awful," that kind of thing, with South Carolina. So I thought he did a good job there. And it's the little things like that, for a guy that's a world-class athlete, he starts getting it. That only helps him get better. I thought he was, again, consistent with his hands. He doesn't look natural doing it all the time, but and he does have some drops and fight. It seems like he's fighting the ball, but he catches it. I remember in the I think Akron game, ball thrown. It's kind of like goes up in the air, bounces off his hands, and he has a guy draped all over him. But he has the concentration to secure the catch and do it. He did it as a freshman. It's not. Hey man, I'll be honest. Brian Edwards and Debo Samuel, when they were at South Carolina, went through a longer stretch of egregious drops than Nyck Harbor has. And that's a fact. Go back and look at that 2018, 2017, and the drop, 2018 especially, the drops. Oh, man. And those guys were good, ended up being really good. I mean, they're not, it happens to receivers, and it hasn't happened to Nyck. I hope I'm not jinxing him this coming year. But there's a lot to work on, a lot of meat on the bone with him. And it's only going to get better with time and practice and, more and more reps. I think one big thing is he's good at catching the ball in traffic, when he's going up and getting it. I think breaking tackles yard after catch is one. I think another one is using your speed in the open field, and that started to come. The Missouri game, the Wofford game, getting him open deep, I think warmed the heart of everybody. When I saw him catch that pass against not the touchdown where he was kind of wide open. That was just a great play, and the corner blitzed, and he's just wide open. But the next one on the fade, I believe it was a fade, where he didn't score, but it was a long pass from Lenoris. That did my heart some good. Do you know that play at Williams-Brice was the exact same play that Eric Kimry threw the fade to Jermel Kelly? I guess it's 25 years ago now. You young folks, go look that up on YouTube. You'll see the fade. It's an infamous play on 4th and 10. Eric Kimry comes in cold. Phil Petty gets hurt. They're playing Mississippi State, who they just could not beat during the 90s. And he apparently looks at Holt, says, "I can throw the fade, coach." He throws it to Jermel Kelly. Touchdown. Gamecocks win. I was in the stands that day as a student, and that play to Harbor wasn't a touchdown, but it was right up that same sideline. And so that's good. And he had a couple catches against Clemson. He, like I said, good for about 3 or 4 catches a game. But the deep threat part of it needs to come. I think, running him on a deep post would be amazing. If he could run that play, Delvine Campbell in the bowl game had the deep pass. It wasn't a very good throw by Lenoris because he had to kind of slow down and went on. He's wide open. So there's a good play design by Shula, or good play by Shula, for those that were wondering about that. But stuff like that, taking a slant, turning it upfield, housing it. He is very fast. He does not play fast, and still does not play as fast as he can play with the ball in his hands. So there's the hope there. That's my little Nyck Harbor spiel about this. After that, Luke Doty's going to come back. Peyton Mangram's gone. Eric Rice is a walk-on that I like, as far as just the guys that aren't freshmen. But then there's the freshmen. So who will play? Who will play amongst these players? And the answer is possibly all of them. Realistically, who are the players that you look at? Because, who could step in as a true freshman and play? And I've kind of got 3 right now I'm liking, but man, it's February 7th. We hadn't started spring ball, and one of them's not here. He's not coming until later, in Donovan Murph. And I'll start with Murph. You talk to anybody around the program, he's physically ready to come in, even though he's an early graduate at about 185, 190 pounds. Showed how good he can be in the Under Armour game with some amazing catches. Just an absolute stud. And go listen to his comments about the South Carolina program. Very good comments at his signing ceremony. Just a player to be excited about. The whole country wanted him. He beat Clemson on him head-to-head. Really just a big recruiting win. And I've said it before. I was sweating those receivers because I'm like, Gamecocks need receivers. You got 2 right there in Columbia. But it was more of I'm sweating it for the future and like gearing up for like a long recruiting battle and the ultimate twists and turns that happen with that, especially with Columbia kids sometimes. And lo and behold, they're both already signed with the Gamecocks and will be on the team next year. So you don't have to worry about it. So good for me. Good for y'all too, because sometimes recruiting drama worse than game drama. Games come and go in a couple hours. This recruiting drama lingers. But not a lot of drama with him, kind of locked in on the Gamecocks. And I think he could be a starter as a true freshman for real. Maybe would I project him to run out there first against Virginia Tech? Maybe not. But in time, I think this guy will be one of the top two or three in quick time. I said in time, all these guys will be good in time, but in quick time, I think he'll be top two or three, and we'll make some plays for the Gamecocks in 2025. Malik Clark is the other. His height and weight, 6'2", 190, physically ready to go, and we'll get a new height and weight on him in the next coming weeks. He's already on campus, and he played bowl practice. Looked pretty good doing it. Is a player that got a lot better junior to senior year at Rock Hill High School. Was committed to Florida State, and they flipped him. But a guy that's got a little dog in him and excellent athleticism. So I think Malik could end up really being a good, solid player this year. I project him to play and be in the rotation somewhere. How much he plays, a lot depends on Nyck Harbor, Jared Brown, Vandrevius Jacobs, and Mazeo Bennett. I mean, they're going to play the best ones. How much better can all those guys get? And how good is he and Murph? And, it's a balancing act or whatever. The next guy I'm going to keep talking about, Brian Rowe. Apparently he's just a freak. Great job by Mike Fury and the staff. They identified him. He had a big offer list, Concord, North Carolina. Got him committed early. They kept him committed. He never wavered. You've got a good bunch of potential when other schools, continue to beat down the door of your recruits. And apparently Georgia, wanted him badly and kept after him. What I'm told is, man, you've probably heard it. In the basket, he can jump up over the rim, put his elbow on the rim. I've said before, love him, Shy Smith type of guy because he can go up and get it. But I think he's probably a more freaky athlete than Shy, and makes tough catches. Is 170 pounds right now and needs to put on some bulk this summer, but he's already there. And he's the one guy that everybody kind of oohs and ahs about when it comes to the receivers at bowl practice. So that's exciting. Plus, he's a North Carolina prospect, and South Carolina kind of chipped away at that wall up in that very important state this cycle. Hopefully they take a sledgehammer and, get a big wall. Get a big hole in that wall in North Carolina. Jordan Gidron is a player that I think, if you're ranking on upside, like it's the Cam Smith, Jamie Robinson thing. Murph is more ready to go now. Gidron's probably the higher ceiling guy in the future. Track athlete, 6'2.5", Ridgeview High School. Injuries set him back last year. Don't know why 24/7 Sports, dropped him a star rating because of that, because he's another that enrolled early and graduated early, and he's already there. I would think the projection would still be the same, but maybe not. So, I think that it gives him a chance between now and August 31st to get going. Probably, if I had to guess, headed for a red shirt because he is young. And like I said, his floor is lower, ceiling's higher. So there's some development that has to take place with him. But another big receiver that's fast, 6'2.5", 190, just a fast guy and a tall guy. And that's frankly something that the Gamecocks, outside of a guy here and there, they need more fast and tall guys in their receiving corps. Lex Cyrus. Now, this is a straight line speed blinder with a lot of wiggle. From Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the Gamecocks beat Penn State on him and then held Penn State off. Penn State was in the semis this year. one of the best years they've had under James Franklin. So they beat the hometown team. That's a great recruiting win by Mike Fury and company. And then to keep him committed is also good. He's a guy that's going to have to add, kind of like Brian Rowe, add some weight and bulk. But boy, he's fast. He is super fast. It's crazy because you got, six guys here, four from South Carolina, one's from North Carolina, and the guy from Pennsylvania may be the fastest of them all. So it's kind of crazy. But he's got a below 10.5 second 100-meter timed, which is literally flying for the Northeast. Anything up in colder weather, because track season, it's not that warm in May and April, and it's harder to run fast, And so to put that time up, that's blazing. If you're Lex Cyrus, certainly very excited about him. How much will he play? I don't know. Maybe he gets in the return game. Maybe he's better than everybody else once we start. But the raw skill set he brings to the table is 0 to 60 pretty quick and a big play waiting to happen. Do not underestimate this next guy. It's tough because of who his brother is, Lenora Sellers, Jaden Pup Sellers from South Florence. Guys that are like best players on their high school football team. Their high school football team wins championships and stuff. They have, as long as they're big enough, fast enough, whatever, they have a chance. And Sellers does have a chance. I think that there's some talk that he may play. There's some talk maybe not this year, but down the road. But just don't count him out. He wasn't a player because he went to South Carolina. Everybody knew he was going to South Carolina. They got a lot of hype, kind of overshadowed by some of all these other guys. I mean, listen to this as an aside. They flipped Malik Clark back from Florida State, and that was good. They held off Georgia for Brian Rowe. They beat Penn State head-to-head for Lex Cyrus. They beat the whole country on Jordan Gidron. They beat the whole country, and especially Clemson, on Donovan Murph. Didn't really have to beat anybody on Sellers. So the recruiting hype isn't there, but that means nothing when it comes to who's good and who's not. It's a sign that, hey, you're doing good work in recruiting. But, as we all saw with basketball this year, sometimes the guys you beat everybody on aren't as good. And that just kind of happens. It happens in every sport. But, that's why Sellers probably wasn't talked about more. But he is a special football player at the high school level. He's already enrolled. We know who his brother is. He's going to be in the playbook. He's also a kick returner. So keep a look out there. So all told, I would say right now that I would say Donovan Murph plays unless there's just some disaster of a pardon me, I think my stepson's got something caught in his throat. If you heard that in the background. I think that Murph plays. I think that Clark is a hard probably. I'm going to go with Rowe plays just because even though he may be slight, he can jump up and get it and it's tough enough. He can handle the collisions and stuff, plays. And then a hard maybe on the others. It just depends in a lot of ways. I want to say this too. When you talk about who's going to play and who's not, and all season hype and stuff like that, and this is not hype. I'm trying to give it to you like straight. What am I supposed to say? None of these guys are going to play. It would be a boring 8 months, 6 months actually at the end of the month, so 7 months. If we all sat around and said, well, you never know till you know. You never know. Just depends. It's hard to play fresh. And gave you these canned answers. Would you guys listen? No, probably not. But I did want to say this. All right, so people are going to bring up Elijah Caldwell because Elijah Caldwell, when he got to campus and was going through player-led workouts, looked really good in 7-on-7 type stuff. Pads came on, not good. And he's not with the program anymore. Player they took late out of Rock Hill. He and Omega Blake, Rock Hill, and you got Rock Hill, you got South Carolina receiver, and Omega, played well. I mean, he's good. Um, but you check those two boxes, Rock Hill and receiver in the state of South Carolina. Those are low bust factor elements. And I don't want to say they're bust, but they just didn't work out at South Carolina. So you never know. But when we reported that, and everybody else was reporting it, I don't know who else reported it, but everybody, people were saying it. That was based on player-led workouts with Spencer Rattler, and that's in your shorts and shirt, and nobody's hitting you, and it's a different game when the pads come on. Um, these guys, I don't know that there was any violent tackling to the ground before the bowl, but these guys have been through bowl practice. So you're out there in at least shells, which are helmets and shoulder pads and shorts, and the pads are popping and all that, and you're going up against, the good defensive backs in practice that not just who shows up on a given day, and you're going up against you're in a college practice. So it's a little bit different with saying, hey, this guy looked good in bowl practice, than this guy looked good in running around and we call it the underwear Olympics, with what you wear under your uniform and all that. But hopefully Elijah Caldwell does well wherever he lands. I wasn't coming down on the guy, but that's the difference. What I've heard about Rowe specifically more aligns with what I heard about Brian Edwards when he got to Carolina, and Brian Edwards played from day one. It's more along the lines of Mazio Bennett feedback. And so we'll see what happens. But, and again, to wrap it up, there's a lot of talk about, well, Carolina should have gotten a wide receiver one. What is that? I don't, that's a fantasy football term. This isn't fantasy football. There were some that they liked and they thought, well, this guy can help us. But there's a sliding scale as far as like how far you're willing to go with your NIL budget for a given player. And Shane Beamer and the staff and everybody that's involved on that end, they determine that value, not what somebody's willing to pay. I hear people all the time in business, well, that's not how the market's the market, and what you pay is what it's worth. Well, it depends on how much you find value in it. You're not going to go overpay. It's not up to the market to decide what you and when your specific team are willing to go pay for a given player. It's up to you. And the ones that are wise about that are the ones that are going to win in college football. Because if you sit there and throw a bunch of money around just thinking, oh, it'll happen, that's a disaster waiting to happen. You pay the guys that have earned it. And it's not that South Carolina won't pay. Obviously, they kept just about everybody out of the transfer portal, okay? That in and of itself means there's money there, and there is. But, you look at it and, are you willing to go pay through the nose for Wallace from Penn State? No. But he would have been a player that was good enough to come in and get in you kind of look at it. Is he good enough and better than what we've got? And if so, how much better is he and how much of an impact will he make? So you may be willing to spend X to get him in and get him competitive. But if you spend Y, then that guy almost has to be a stud. You know what I'm saying? And if you're not 100% sure, then you don't do it. Same with Casey Concepcion. They have guys like Casey Concepcion. So what's going to set him apart from Donovan Murph other than experience? And he's a slot guy. So he doesn't, if you pay him through the nose, you don't really fill your need, like what you needed to go get. And the need was if there'd have been a 6'3", 6'4", 6'4" guy, an outside guy, they would have gone and gotten him and been willing to pay for that. But you can't overpay for big names just because they're names. They have to be fits. Now, do I think South Carolina will be interested in a good receiver that gets in the portal the next period? Yes, that and D tackle both. I think there's room in the boat All those scholarships, I think, are like at 84. They're about 84 right now. So maybe only one player, maybe another leaves. You never know. But that's the deal with the portal, and I agree with that. I don't think given the track records, and we don't have a huge sample size. Don't overpay. And before you say Ohio State only signed six guys out of the portal. What they did was kept a lot of their talent that they had from going and jumping in the draft and being fifth, sixth round, seventh round guys. And you got to pay those guys, and that's good. And then you may say, well, whoa, why didn't they keep T.J. Sanders and Nicky Minori? Because those aren't fifth, sixth, seventh round guys. Those are top 3 round guys. And absolutely, they made the right decision to go. They're ready. They're ready to go. So we'll see what happens. But I do think South Carolina's receiver core will be better next year. I think that they'll have some players emerge. They'll make some big plays. I think that you may get your wide receiver one, be it Nyck Harbor, be it Donovan Murph, be it whoever. We'll see. We'll see. Mazio Bennett, Jared Brown. I mean, there's a lot of options, and we'll see what happens. It's going to be young, but if you look at this group heading down the road, and you kind of can see who they're targeting for 2026 at receiver, a lot of taller outside guys. The kid that's coming in from Virginia, 6'3", and Marion Mosley from Carrollton, Georgia, 6'3", so are listed that way. So they are kind of you have several slots out of this group of 6 you brought in. So now you're going to go get, you can kind of see the wheels turning there a little bit. And down the road for Sellers or Aaron Noland or Brady Smeagol or Jared Curtis or whoever, if all goes according to plan, and all these guys aren't going to work out, it's 6 players, these true freshman receivers. Down the road, they're if the cream rises to the crop, if 3 or 4 of these guys end up being what we think, then you're not going to really have issues at receiver anymore at South Carolina, as long as you keep backfilling. And of course, the caveat with injuries and all that. Hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Gamecock basketball tomorrow gets back in action at Kentucky. I've liked this break from this team. Lamont Paris 2-0 against the Wildcats. They're slumping a little bit. We'll see what happens. It'd be nice to get off to a 1-0 start, second half of the season. And again, don't forget the baseball opening day will be 1 week from today. Ray Tanner Field will be a thing. The first game of the Pulmonary era. Very exciting, I think, to get into that. We're not going to talk a ton of baseball here. I'll give you the score, maybe some thoughts first thing in the morning, because if you wake up, turn me on. Wait a minute. If you wake up, turn this show on. You may want to hear the score and you may want to hear a little bit, but it's really football focused. Your football, Gamecock football, coffee, and other stuff from time to time. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button here on our YouTube channel. Also, go hit the subscribe button on the new YouTube channel for JC and Morgan. JC and Morgan's still going to be here on Chief Sports South Carolina, but we're kind of going to do both and build another college football-centric channel for that, because we have other partners at Chief that cover other teams and things of that nature. So for your broad college football experience, go hit the subscribe button on College Football Forever. So do that. Go search it out. College Football Forever will be kind of where a lot of the JC and Morgan stuff ends up being, while also being here. All right, folks, have a wonderful weekend. I'll be back Monday after the Super Bowl. Gonna pre-record that one most likely. So I won't give you the Super Bowl score in the morning, but maybe not. Who knows? I'm full of surprises. See you later today on the show. Don't forget 12 to 2 with myself and Mad Dog Mullinax. Have a great day, Gamecocks. Have a great weekend.